All right, so welcome back to the channel. Daniel here again, Mr. Cuervo Racing. Today I am talking about what I use and tips of installing a cylinder. So this one here is a big bore 105.5 Raptor 700 base as usual here. And I'm going to show you what I use, what I've been doing for a long time. A lot of guys ask me this question of what I use when I assemble the cylinder. Do I use oil? Do I use assembly lube? Do I use some type of grease? What to do? So I've always used this extreme pressure anti-seize engine assembly lube, moly graphite by Stay Lube. The parent company is CRC. That's a part number there on this particular bottle. I do send these with most of the pistons. And basically what I do here is, I'll show you in a second, is I'm going to coat the inside of the cylinder wall so that piston doesn't scuff on there. But it also helps break in other rings too. But I use this assembly lube because some of these engines I'm shipping out. So if you put them together with just oil, which is fine. If they sit a while, if it's hot, that oil is going to drain off of the piston and no longer be there to protect it during that initial startup, which is most important, especially on brand new components. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. Another thing I wanted to cover is, if you guys are running a OEM cylinder, OEM board cylinder, 105.5, highly recommend to use the factory gasket. So see where it says stamped 1S3, that's the prefix for the Raptor 700. But basically the factory has this silicone embedding on here that covers the case seams, and that prevents leaking in that area. So this is a Cometic, and they just come dry. So most often, most guys, when they have a base gasket leak, that's the first thing I ask them: what gasket did you use? And it's not because this gasket is bad for any reason. It's because if you have any variation in the deck height, this silicone seals it, and that area is fairly thin. So we'll look at the engine here real quick, and basically zoom in here. Okay, so we're looking. This silicone seals right in this area here where these two case halves come together, and they're normally really close, but not ever perfect. So that's what that silicone does. It's going to seal right there. So I'm going to drop this gasket on here. Let's see. So gasket's going to go on. The silicone goes down. Sorry, out of frame here for a second, but I'm just going to get that out of the way, and we'll see if we can get this cylinder on. So, a couple different things. Okay. We're going to use a fairly healthy amount. And then wear some gloves and work that into the cylinder wall all the way up. Try not to get any on the outside here. We will wipe it clean afterwards, and I will show you why. So I don't put any of the grease or assembly lube on the actual piston, not on the skirts or the rings. And the reason why is because it becomes extremely difficult to assemble if the rings have grease on them to push them into their slot. So as we push the piston up into the cylinder bore, so I'm just cleaning this with brake parts cleaner, get that edge off of there. As we push that piston up through this grease, it's going to coat those rings and coat the side of the piston skirt. So that's going to have assembly lube on it. I do coat the wrist pin, the rod, and the piston wrist pin bore to make sure that that has lubrication on it. All right, so let's see what works best here. Try to get a camera angle that's going to work is what I'm trying to figure out here for a second. That's not going to be too far in the way. Let's see. All right, so cylinder's prepped. I already checked the install height, not the install height, but the deck height on the piston. Make sure it's coming up to the proper height where I need it to be. So that's all good to go. And basically I need to get this cylinder on here, and that will be that. So as you're putting the rings on, you're setting the end gap, where that end gap goes, staggering them to spec. There's a couple different ways to do that, but also as I'm putting the cylinder on, I am going to verify those ring positions as well. So, all right, here we go. Let's see. Sometimes this goes easy, sometimes it's more difficult. You can do these in the bike, and that's normally what I'll do when I'm doing just a top end. So these big bore cylinders, they don't have as much taper on the bottom of the cylinder anymore. So you gotta feed the rings through and butt the end gaps up to get them to fall in. Just gotta go slow and be cautious. And they'll go.